Hello and welcome to The Left Wing. Well, Ireland are back in the quarterfinals of the World Cup. They'll play New Zealand here next Saturday evening after their 36 points to 14 win over Scotland to top their pool. Lads, what an impressive first half performance in particular that was from Ireland.
Yeah. We called for a strong start. We wanted to see them do what they did in New Zealand, what they did in Cardiff, and they produced it. Now, they didn't double down in attack, they doubled down in defence. They scored early, but then Scotland threw everything they had at them, like everything they had, and Ireland stayed standing. Their defensive performance was superb. The 18 or 19 phase set on their own, well, it started on their own goal line and finished on the edge of the 22 when they won. Was it won a penalty or forced a knock on?
Yeah, Caelan Doris, I think.
Doris,
forced a knock on. It was a remarkable period, and you could see them just breaking the Scots as they went, and a really depressing night for Scottish rugby. And the press conference with Gregor Townsend there was very downbeat, and he said that Ireland and the way Irish rugby is set up could dominate rugby for between 5 and 10 years, depending on who was listening best. But
5 to 10, I'm standing.
I heard 5 to 6, but it was, he said Ireland are one of the two favourites for this tournament. He was very effusive in his praise, and they now march on to face New Zealand in a rematch of the quarter-final from 4 years ago. And they've got a very good chance of going all the way based on what we've seen, but they still have to do what they did from South Africa into this game, dust themselves down, analyse it, see what went right, see what went wrong, and perform next weekend, which they've never done, well, apart from 1991, but in modern times, Ireland have never performed in a World Cup quarter-final. It's a stain on the record of Irish rugby. It's time to change that.
Well, Andy Farrell said there's more to come from this team as well.
Yeah, and we're just out of the mix zone, and I've been chatting to a couple of different players. I mean, Caelan Doris was basically saying that he doesn't think that he's played anywhere near his best at this World Cup as well, and that he said that that's a feeling that's shared among several players in the squad. And this has kind of been my sense all along, that you do have guys like that. I thought Caelan Doris, by the way, was exceptional defensively. I think he made 22 tackles. Josh van der Fleer made 21, and then when you look at how well Peter O'Mahony played on his 100 cap, like the line out was immaculate. They won all of their line outs. Ian Henderson obviously a key part of that, but that's the attitude that's in this squad at the moment. They don't feel like individually and collectively they've hit anywhere near their peak, and this is a point that we were making during the week, that guys like Caelan Doris don't have the baggage of previous teams, and there's a fearlessness there amongst them. I mean, they're going to be playing New Zealand next week, and you see Bowden Barrett has already come out and basically said that they want to play Ireland, they want another crack at them. Like, I mean, this has never happened in the history, really, where Ireland will be going into that game as favourites, you'd imagine. So very encouraging. I thought the opening 40 minutes, I know Scotland were poor, but that was as good as Ireland have played, I think, in a while in that opening 40 minutes. Like Rod mentioned, the 18 phases that they had, but the way they unpicked the Scottish defence, I mean, they had a couple of set-piece moves that were just exceptional. Ringrose, like, ending up playing on the wing, Jamison Gibson Park playing on the wing. It actually reminded me of Murrayfield a little bit earlier this year in the adversity. Gibson Park was brilliant on the wing as well. So it just shows you how seamlessly guys are able to slot into positions. Stuart McCloskey was saying he was running on the wing in training this week as well, so clearly they're preparing for all eventualities. You would hope that the two wingers, James Lowe and Mac Hansen, are going to be fit for next week, because they are so important to everything that Ireland do, and that was probably the kind of the black mark on the night, really, was the injuries to James Ryan as well. So hopefully they come through over the next few days, because they're three key players.
Yeah, so James Ryan, his wrist, James Lowe,
it looked like Tyg Byrne. I think it looked like Tyg Byrne got his finger in his eye, which is just friendly fire, a real freak thing. Yeah,
and then Mac Hansen, obviously the HIA, and then the calf, and obviously we will find out more on them, and then we also have to find out about Robbie Henshaw. But Gregor Townsend said as well afterwards, when you give them entries in the 22, they're very good with coming away with the points. They were ruthless at times tonight.
They really were. It was the best attacking performance I think they've put together in this World Cup. I think in each of the games previous to this, they had moments where they let the opposition off the hook and they would have been frustrated by them. I know they ran up big scores against Romania and Tonga. South Africa defended brilliantly against them, but there were moments where they really could have been more accurate and they could have delivered the scores, and that's what they did tonight, while also maintaining their defensive standards. I know the 2 tries during the second half will annoy them, and that's something they can work on in midweek. And I do think they tired as the game went on. I think that game took a lot out
Jack
of them.
Conan said that afterwards. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, it was worried. Not well. I don't know if worrying. I mean, New Zealand have an 8-day turn or a 9-day turnaround from a fairly facile win over Uruguay, having hammered Italy and really haven't had a proper test since France. So there's a little bit of there will be fatigue early in the week. They won't be able to train as hard early in the week as New Zealand will. So they're playing a bit of catch up in that regard. And I think they left an awful lot of emotion and, I guess, even the detail and the precision the concentration that's required to deliver with that precision does take it out of the players. And they brought on the bench early, and even the bench players are starting to look to flag a little bit.
That's a really good point, because I mean, this is maybe a consequence of Andy Farrell going so strong throughout the tournament. I mean, if you were to sit down and rack up like certain guys' minutes, they're through the roof, and that's been like, you can't really argue with that, because Ireland are going into the World Cup quarter final with huge momentum behind them, but they have a lot of game time under their belt. But maybe that's the way to go, because in previous years maybe they would have been rested a little bit more. Clearly that didn't pay off in quarterfinals, and something had to change. So maybe that is, but I do agree with you, Rod. I think you could see it towards the end. The defensive line was all over the place. Guys were absolutely flagging. Guys who are super fit. Gary Ringrose at one stage looked like he was about to drop to his knees almost. Now obviously he had put in a huge shift. It was kind of humid and stuff out there as well, but he's played an awful amount of rugby at this World Cup as well. But I would still prefer to have that going into a quarter final rather than guys kind of playing a little bit of catch up.
Yeah, it does feel like the page is quickly turning quickly to the quarter final. Here's what Johnny Sexton, and you asked as well, Rory, about asked a question to Andy Farrell about facing New Zealand in the quarter final next week.
Sometimes when in the back of your mind, you've got different permutations with, if you get 1 point, if you get 2, if you're losing by all these different things, and we just needed to narrow the focus and say we're here to win the game and put in a performance to do that. So very happy with the lads, and we're exactly where we want to be now in terms of we won the pool, and now we're into the quarter final, and we always knew most likely play France or New Zealand. There's no easy option there, and now we've got New Zealand, so it'll be a very tough game. And I see that they were talking about revenge already and stuff like that, so it'll be a game they want, and we need to be ready for it.
Andy, it's congratulations on tonight. It's history on the double on the line next week. It's a chance to go 18 in a row, which only 2 teams have ever done in history, and it's a chance to go further than any Irish team has ever gone before the World Cup. What makes you think this team can make history next week?
Because I don't think, and neither do the team think that we've played our best rugby yet. We know where we want to go and what we're trying to achieve. Will we ever get there? I don't know, but it's days like next week that's coming where we need to find out a little bit more about ourselves, and these lads are certainly willing to do that.
That was a good question, Rory, to Andy Farrell there.
Well done.
Yeah.
Well done.
What's rare is wonderful. Like, it is a significant week in the history of Irish rugby. If they win the game, they go and become joint with, sorry, the phrasing is very badly, they will equal England and New Zealand's record of 18 consecutive wins, and their list of the teams they've beaten is so impressive. But it's a pretty big one to round it off. Ireland actually ended both of those winning runs against England and New Zealand in 16 and 17. It will be a significant moment, but even more significant obviously is the fact that it's a quarter final, and while this is a new group and the players will talk about how they're not burdened by history, it will be a factor this week. We will be asking them about it. We've already started. It's our job to do so. Yeah, this is where Gary Keegan kicks in and where Andy Farrell kicks in terms of, he's already said it. He said this is living, isn't it?
That's right.
Which was a brilliant line. I'm sure that's what he's saying to the players. This is where you want to be. And I was reminded, I was talking to Dave Kilcoyne down in the mix zone there, and he would have been in that dressing room 4 years ago. This feels so different to when we were leaving. Was it Samoa and Fukuoka when they beat them well, but you just were not convinced? Yeah, well, even that was hanging over, but you just weren't convinced that they were in the right place, the right frame of mind, the right form to take on New Zealand, and so proved 7 days later. They kind of convinced a lot of people by the end of that week that they could perform, but really it was all bluster and they had nothing left in the performance. Whereas this time, you would expect them to give it a right good shot and rattle New Zealand's cage, across an 80-minute performance. And they're good enough to beat them, as we know. So they're in a much better place. But there is a mental challenge. I mean, that performance anxiety line that came out of the World Cup review 4 years ago is still there. And they've worked so hard to get to this point. It would be such a shame if they weren't able to actually go out there and deliver a big performance in the biggest moment of their careers, and then sets up another big moment a week later, and then hopefully another one a week later, because this team is capable of winning a World Cup, but they've got to go and do it now.
The fact that they've avoided France is huge in my mind, in the sense that next week is going to be like another home game for Ireland. You'd imagine the support tonight was incredible. Like, we were sitting here, Sinead, yesterday, and James Lowe had said they heard 60,000 people, and you were kind of thinking that would have been a bit far-fetched really, but it looked like there was at least 60,000 people. Absolutely insane support. I mean, Johnny Sexton made the point that he didn't think it could get any better than South Africa, but it was up another level. And like, it's just an obvious fact that there aren't going to be as many Kiwis travelling from New Zealand to France next week, and Irish fans just have a way of borrowing and stealing and getting their hands on tickets. Obviously not stealing, just for the lawyers' record. But that is massive. Like, that is massive, because if they were playing France, it would obviously be a home game for France. So it's going to feel like another home game next week. I mean, Stade de France turned into an Irish disco at the end.
They were bringing out all the hits,
They were, but I do think the players, it was quite sedate. I thought even at full time, it was barely an arm raised. It wasn't like South Africa, because it didn't come down to the final play, which felt like a massive moment. I thought it was interesting that Andy Farrell and Johnny Sexton both referenced the fact that they got a bit of pelters for celebrating at this win over South Africa. That got through to them. I know you wrote about it. It was ridiculous that they did. It was a big win. They're going around thanking the fans. It's really not a big deal. Like, people have nothing better to be doing than to be criticising that stuff. But tonight they did walk around the crowd and wave and meet their families and stuff. But it definitely wasn't over the top. I didn't get a sense that they felt like they'd achieved something tonight. That was a step along the journey.
What they achieved tonight was what they had they'd convinced themselves that they were going to do. Like, there was no surprise element. Like, everything that we talked about throughout the week, the fast start, the pack absolutely destroyed that Scottish pack. The 5-2, I know they had the 6-2, I know they had a couple of injuries, but it was just a non-event in terms of like the bench. The Irish bench came on. I know they lost their way a little bit but when they initially came on, like, James Ryan was flying around, Ronan Kelleher, but Ireland did what we all expected them to do, and that's kind of just business as normal, and that gives me kind of like optimism, I think, going into a quarter-final, and it's why it does feel a little bit different, I think.
Good to see the line-up back functioning again, 100% success, and Ian Henderson absolutely justifying the decision to start him.
I thought he was very good, I did, like, not spectacular, but he got a try as well, but the line-up was like perfect. It was very, one in the second half that looked a little hairy, but it was, Dan Sheehan's throwing was exceptional. A lot of it went to Peter O'Mahony. I thought, just the timing, all the stuff that they've been saying they're working on for the last while. They keep saying they're not changing anything. They're not changing anything. It must have been a big focus internally, because you cannot beat the best teams. Sorry, I was going to say you cannot beat. Ireland did just beat South Africa with a line-out. Although the way they figured it out was quite impressive. But New Zealand will hunt them there. They will throw up all of their big men. They have a very good defensive line-out. That is an area that they will have identified. And Joe Schmidt is there. I know he's not the line-out coach, but he does have a finger in every pie when he's coaching a team, and he will have done.
Have we only mentioned Joe Schmidt now? Have we?
Yeah. Well, Joe Schmidt can't scrummage for them, and Tyrell Lomax is probably going to be out, and he's their starting tight head prop. So
Greg Feek is another key man. He basically designed the Irish scrum, didn't he? The role that he played in so many of these guys, so he's going to have a massive influence as well this week. But as we've been saying all along, I just don't think Andy Farrell, when we were over in New Zealand last year, obviously we're constantly asking him about Joe. He was going out meeting Joe Schmidt for coffee and stuff. He just doesn't. I don't know whether that will happen this week now in terms of World Cup quarter final, but I just can't see that kind of stuff getting in Andy Farrell's head, and if it's not in his head, I don't think it's going to be in the player's head.
No, I don't think it's a mental factor necessarily. I just think Joe Schmidt will come up with something.
Of course, and he would love it.
And they were very good. The first night here, they created two unbelievable first phase tries. The Ardie Surveyor chip was a piece of innovative brilliance, and Ireland just need to be able to roll with those punches in the way that France did on opening night and back themselves that across 80 minutes they can beat New Zealand. But like we saw in the first test, that if things go wrong, I know Sexton was gone off. I think I'm going to have to go back and watch all three tests now tomorrow.
I know. You need to bring out your New Zealand diaries as well from when you were there.
Exactly.
But it matters. It absolutely matters. Of course it is.
But the first test is also relevant. It's just as relevant as the second and third, because if you give New Zealand, they are the team that can score from nothing, and Will Jordan can cut you apart. We saw that in Dublin even when Ireland were so much better than them. What was that in 17? Ireland was so much better than them, but New Zealand went in ahead at half time, I think, and it was on the back of a try from nothing. One Irish mistake, a line out went wrong, but they are able to they, like no other team can hurt you from absolutely nothing. Now they failed to score for almost 20 minutes against Uruguay on Thursday with a really good team. So I just don't think they're as good as they used to be. Look, we'll be talking about them all week, but it's there for Ireland if they can just put it together, that performance that we know they can deliver. But Hansen and Lowe are big.
Yeah. And Joe Schmidt would absolutely love nothing more than to get one over in Ireland. He absolutely would. I think he'd probably feel that maybe there's been a bit of disrespect kind of in hindsight. Like there's been, we can definitely get into it throughout the week because we're going to have so much to talk to, but he is definitely going to be fired up and he will have something, like whether if it's a move or stuff. Yeah. And no one is underestimating New Zealand. I
am so excited.
I've said that I reckon they're favourites, but it's a close to a 50-50 game, really.
Like Joe can get a team a bit too wound up as well, as we've seen. Like, if he's too wound up for this game, that can infect the team as well, and can cause a bit of a kind of an anxiety or a stress. Whereas you can see from Ireland, they're feeding off Farrell in the way that he just watched him during the warm up tonight. He just strolls from player to player, having a chat. He's not involved. He's not. He just lets the assistants do their work. He has a little word with Conor Murray here, a little word with James Lowe there. He feels the work is done. He doesn't stress them out at all. They feed off his energy, and that's taken them this far. Next week we could all be saying that they were too relaxed. I know we won't be, but they're it's such an interesting contrast in styles, and it's why we always keep coming back to it. But it's a big factor this week. It will be a big talking point. The Ian Foster thing, he's pretty banned Scott Robertson from coming to see his matches. So much to get stuck into. What a week to look forward to.
The show goes on. We're not going home yet.
So come here. Anything else from tonight then, lads? We know Jemison Gibbison Park can improvise in the wing. We know that some guy can throw Sheehan over the bloody advertising board.
He did well to get away with that. Apparently the Irish players are already slagging Dan Sheehan about it.
I think the comfort. I think it bears repeating. I know Cian touched on it earlier. The comfort with which Gary Ringrose and Jemison Gibbison Park were able to play a second role. I mean, the idea that you can consume that much information, remember it, and then produce it under pressure like that. Like the way Ringrose contributed to the second try, I think it was, maybe it was the third try, the kick that he put in to win the kick battle after a lovely piece of control in the backfield, and then to pop up. Brilliant touch. And then to pop up in the right position at the right time, to have the composure to throw the dummy and put Keenan away. I think my memory's not great.
Gibson Park did something similar as well.
Park, to work, to have the last carry in one move, get up to his feet, and we were watching him. He tore away the whole way around and have the fitness, and we're talking about him being tired, to catch the ball, compose himself, and give the try scoring pass to Dan Sheehan. The work rate that he put in out of position was phenomenal. Conor Murray comes on, does really well as well. So Ireland have competition, they've got players playing well, and they've got players who are adaptable.
On that Gibson Park try, in fairness, you had spotted it and you were like, watch Gibson Park, Gibson Park, and you did track him. That is what Mac Hansen does. You know what I mean? It was like watching Mac Hansen, and like Rod said, it's remarkable. It shows the intelligence of the individual, but also the preparation that's going in behind the scenes, that for a scrum half to be able to run the line of a winger that they clearly train on is remarkable. It just shows that no stone is being left unturned for this shot at history next week.
I feel it's only starting, lads, the World Cup in many ways.
Well, it is, really. A lot of, we've had a lot of dross, a lot of games, not really early on in Ireland's pool, but even over the weekend. I know Samoa ran England close today, but the World Cup is too long and has a lot of games that don't really matter. Well, next Saturday and Sunday, we're very lucky to be here. The two semi-finals or two quarterfinals on this side of the draw. They should be semi-finals. The four best teams in the world going up against each other here at the Stade de France. It's going to be absolutely epic, and we just hope that Ireland will be able to deliver a performance that is worthy of themselves, because if they don't, it'll be such a missed opportunity. Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, before I go, just to remind you that the Left Wing live show is coming to the 3 Olympia Theatre on Thursday, the 19th of October. Luke Fitzgerald, Bernard Jackman and Stephen Ferris will be there looking ahead to the World Cup semi-finals. Hopefully Ireland will be there too. All the details on that will be on ticketmaster.ie. We're all flying back. Big show, hitting the big time. Yes, I'm telling you. The Left Wing goes big. I want one of those boxes at the side of the Olympia. Well, hopefully, I just hope we're still here. Yeah, hopefully we're not going to be there, because otherwise sometimes private jet will be out. Something's gone drastically wrong if we're going to be in the Olympia on that date. So yeah, hopefully we'll be still here. Yeah, no, it should be a cracking show. It's 1:05 in the morning. We got to go and go to bed. But thanks for listening. We'll have plenty more coming your way this week.